I want to talk to you about what our Fed and our Treasury are doing, and it is really, really much worse than you think. And I think you're starting to get a handle on that we're not coming back. I'm sorry. I mean to be the bearer of bad news here, but somebody has to tell you the truth. Normal is never coming back. It's never coming back. Or at least it's not for many, many, many years. And I think James Altucher gave a great description of what's happening in New York. It's just not coming back because everything has changed. Part of this is what I talked about, that great tech disruption that was coming. I told you it would be coming in the next 5 years, and it just came through the coronavirus, where people were going to realize, wait a minute, we don't need all these jobs, or we don't need to work in these cities, and it would be a giant disruption to the system, and people we would have, remember I said 30 to 50% unemployment was coming in the next 5 years. Well, we're at 11%, but they were predicting 35%. So the disruption is happening now, but what's about to come is much worse than what we've already seen, because the medicine is far worse than the disease. The CBO has now estimated that in 2018, the interest costs on our debt would consume all projected discretionary spending in dollars in a projected budget by 2026. So this is what the CBO said in 2018, that by 2026, we would have no money in our budget except for the interest on the debt. As of now, that number now is 2024. But that number could come down if inflation heats up and interest rates spike up. So as long as interest rates stay the way they are and inflation stays the way it is, we have until 2024. Interest cost on the debt, even at hyper low interest rates that we're seeing right now, is just shy of $600 billion. And that was in 2019 when the debt was $22 trillion. By the end of this year, the federal debt is $27 trillion. And current projections on interest cost will be $720 billion, so almost $1 trillion just in interest. Even including the Fed discount on interest costs, that's what you're looking at. The total federal tax revenue is $2 trillion, so the cost to service just the debt will consume 40% of income tax dollars collected next year. In 1971, that cost to service the debt was 2%. It's now going to be 40% next year. That's assuming everything goes well. Interest costs then were 5%. Today, the government gets to borrow from the Fed at 1.5% cost, but the cost to service is still consuming ever more of our federal budget. We are now doing modern monetary theory, with the exception that the Fed is a private company. They are not issuing sovereign currency. It's the Fed. So the losses at the Fed could actually put the Fed out of business. The underlying shareholders, these 5 big banks, remember the ones we've been bailing out. That's the Fed. And so we've been bailing them out. And they claim they're bailing us out. If we issued a sovereign currency from the government, they could effectively print any amount of money they wished forever, with the resulting hyperinflation having the same effect as bankruptcy, because the purchasing power of the bills they'd be printing would end up having no real value to them. And they'd just be turned back into, starting fires or toilet paper or making blue jeans. There's an article out now in Forbes that you should read, and it is correct. If it is truly all of it correct, the federal debt will reach $78 billion. $78 billion by 2028. $78 trillion.
I was going to say, that's great news.
Yeah,
78 billion.
trillion. Sorry, 78 trillion.
Oh.
The cost to service that amount of debt will be close to the entire federal budget, about $2.8 trillion just to pay the interest. When I talk about being a slave, you get nothing from the federal government. There is no opportunity to fix anything in our country. And we all work as hard as we are now just to service the debt. And Wall Street wonders why Warren Buffett just invested $700 million in gold. It's pretty clear. When will this be made clear so the average person can actually prepare?